Hey guys, Welsknight here, and welcome back to another episode of Kingdoms. I hope you guys are having an awesome day. I'm having a pretty good day. Much better than the last couple of days. Oh man. I want to apologize for kind of the lack of uploads of Kingdoms and Hermitcraft and FTB Horizons and stuff like that over the last couple days. I don't want to go into details about it for a number of reasons, ranging from I want this to be a place for positivity, and I don't want to bring you guys down with my problems and things like that. And I just don't really want to talk about it. But let's just say that the last couple of days have been chaotic. Very, very challenging and extremely stressful, and I have not really gotten a lot done YouTube-wise over the last couple days, and there are reasons for it that I'm just not going to get into. But long story short, the worst of it is over. I think we're good now. I think we're back on track, and I'm excited to be back to recording some Kingdoms and Minecraft videos and all that kind of stuff. So we'll be back to normal. It's been a very difficult couple of days. But let's go ahead and kind of start working on things while I kind of talk about some stuff. So basically, yeah, it's been crazy. And, you know, sometimes these things happen, and that's just the way it is. Like, life presents you with challenges, and you just kind of have to deal with them, and there's not much you can do about it. But what I want to do today is I want to work on building a couple more houses. I kind of want to get this like little area here sort of situated. I want to put a house here. I want to put a house probably over in here so that, you know, when you walk in through the main gates of the city, you immediately start seeing buildings and things like that. I think that'll be really good. So let's go 4 on each of these, and then we'll start kind of building these up a bit. And while we're doing that, we'll talk about some stuff. I had someone ask me quite a long time ago. I don't remember who it was. I don't remember the video that the comment was left on. But I had someone ask me, you know, how I deal with stress. Because honestly, like, I am someone who deals with stress better than most people do. Like, some people just completely, like, shut down when they're put in a stressful situation. And I'm not saying that I'm, like, immune to stress, because I'm certainly not. I get stressed out just like everybody else does. But I'm fairly good at, like, dealing with it for the most part. And I kind of want to talk a little bit about, while we're building all these things and building houses and stuff, I kind of want to talk a little bit about the idea of, like, coping with stress. Because I think it's kind of an important life skill. And, you know, kind of tying into the last couple of days for me, honestly, the last couple of days have been the most stressed that I have been, honestly, like, probably since I found out I was deploying to Iraq. Like, I don't think I've been this stressed out since my deployment. And that was obviously a very stressful time for the reasons that you can imagine. But yeah, I mean, it's been a challenging couple of days, but I've managed to get through it. Everything is good now. Everything is, you know, I mean, I won't say that everything is entirely dealt with, but the worst of it is absolutely over. From here on out, it should be like fairly smooth sailing, so to speak. We're gonna have to tweak this a little bit, and that's okay. I can do that. Anyway, so let's talk a little bit about stress, because the reality is a lot of what we have to do in this kingdom over the next several episodes is building these houses. And you guys have now seen me build a few of these houses, and I think you guys kind of get the idea, so I don't really feel the need to use like my sort of tutorial style where I'm like, and then we'll do this, and then we'll do that, and then you place this block here, and that, you know what I mean? Like, I think you guys get the idea as to how to build these houses. So instead, it gives us a chance to talk about some other stuff, and I think that's a good thing. Let's just kind of put some of this stuff away. Why is that in here? I feel like that should be in this chest. Yeah, there we go. So let's grab, there we go, some glass, and we'll just kind of start putting things in place. Actually, I should probably go grab some stone right here as well. just to make things easy. But yeah, when it comes to stress, I mean, everyone is going to be put into situations over the course of their lives that are stressful. It's just the reality of life. Stressful things happen, whether it's maybe it's finals. If you're a student, if you're in college, maybe it's finals. Maybe you get, very stressed out when finals come. And I've been through finals myself. I certainly don't blame you. Finals can be a very stressful time. Maybe you're at work and you've got like a ton of things that are happening. Maybe there's like some sort of, big corporate inspection coming and you have to do a big inventory and you have tight deadlines, or maybe it's just, some sort of like, other things that are happening in life. Maybe like you had a relationship recently end, or you're in a fight with one of your friends, or any number of things. I mean, let's be honest, there's a million different things out there that can cause people to be stressed out. And there are different things that people do, some of them more effective than others, to kind of cope with that and deal with that. You know what? Let's grab some stone brick stairs and kind of shape out the roof before I start putting down blocks. There we go. I'll just grab a few here. But yeah, when you are presented with a stressful situation, some people just kind of like fold. They just crumple up, and my wife is often like this when she gets really stressed out, and she tends to get stressed out about kind of all sorts of things. She just kind of like almost collapses. Like it's very, she really struggles dealing with like stressful situations. And in many cases, she just kind of like shuts down. And then other people, are better at dealing with it than some people are. So, one of the things that people can do to deal with stressful situations, this is going to have to be changed, isn't it? Because you're going to have to go up. And that one's going to have to go up. There we go. So we can kind of turn it there, grab a slab, and put that right there. There we go. When it comes to dealing with stress, I find it very useful to kind of focus on the present. Focus on what's like immediately in front of you, and just kind of take it one task at a time. Right? The focus on whatever that task is. It doesn't have to be something complicated. It can be something as simple as like, well, it's almost lunchtime, so I'm going to focus on making lunch. I'm going to focus on cooking lunch. Or it can be, if you're working on finals, you're stressed out, finals are coming, you got to write a big essay or whatever. Maybe you focus on, writing. Maybe you focus just on doing the research for the essay, or whatever. The examples are kind of irrelevant, but the point is, you take things one thing at a time, and you just kind of like, there's this idea that like tunnel vision is not good. But I think in extremely stressful situations, tunnel vision actually can be a good thing. Like, you want to kind of give yourself tunnel vision, so that you're focused only on what's like immediately in front of you, and it doesn't really give you a chance to think about whatever it is that's really stressing you out. Like, that, I think, is a good thing. And that's kind of what I do when I end up in a very stressful situation. I focus on whatever it is immediately that I have to, turn my attention to. And then once that's dealt with, I move on to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And eventually, the reality is that almost every stressful situation will eventually resolve itself in one way or another. All good things must come to an end, but all bad things generally come to an end as well, for the most part. Excuse me, I need a little bit more coffee. Nectar of the gods right there. Caffeine. There's also an argument to be made that part of my method for dealing with stress is also just copious amounts of coffee, but I kind of drink copious amounts of coffee whether I'm stressed out or not, so I don't know if that's a fair statement. But anyway, I digress. It's one of those things where if you're able to really focus on just whatever's in front of you and accomplish that task or that thing and then move on to the next, you end up essentially putting yourself in a situation where it limits your stress, because you're not thinking about all the horrible things that are going on, or all the bad things that could potentially happen, or whatever. People have a tendency to catastrophize, which is a big fancy word that means think about how one thing will lead to the worst possible outcome. There was like a DirecTV commercial a while back where it was like, I'm trying to remember how it went, but basically it was the idea that like this minor small thing eventually leads to like, the end of the world as we know it. Don't be the guy stuck in the grocery store waiting for beans. Get DirecTV. It was like it was an amusing commercial. But I remember when I was in college, we were talking about it in one of our classes. It might have been like psychology or something, and we were talking about the idea of how people catastrophize. People have a tendency to think about a situation and just assume that like that is how bad things are going to go, right? Like you end up in a situation and you think about like, okay, well, this is going to lead to this is going to lead to this, and then that's going to be the end of life as I know it. My life is over, my life is ruined, and that's, 99.9% of the time not actually the case, but it's kind of human nature to look at those fairly minor things and just assume that that the worst possible outcome is ultimately what's going to happen, and that's called catastrophizing, and it's something that people do, and it's also not healthy at all. Like catastrophizing is very bad for your mental state and for like your stress level and stuff like that. So focusing on the things directly in front of you, I think, really helps kind of reduce the natural tendency to catastrophize and to just assume that the worst possible thing is going to happen. And I think that's really important because, when people start catastrophizing, they just get more and more stressed, and then the situation just gets worse and worse and worse, and it ends up being really bad. So one thing I would encourage people to do if you're dealing with an exceptionally stressful situation is try and take your mind off it. And do so by doing something productive. Focus on your work. Focus on whatever you need to work on at that time, and then just kind of move on to the next thing. Now, that doesn't always work. Sometimes, depending on like what you actually have to get done, sometimes you are still so stressed out that you can't even like bring yourself to work, right? Like that's kind of how I've been the last couple days. I've been so stressed about stuff that I've found it difficult to even like have the motivation to record videos, because I've just been the reality is that like as a YouTuber, as someone who is ultimately in many ways an entertainer, if I am miserable when I'm recording videos, like you guys are going to notice, and it's not going to be good. Like you guys, it's going to hurt the quality of the videos. I want people to be able to come to my channel and, enjoy themselves and, maybe, and have like a positive part of their day. And if I'm just miserable during that part of the day, then that's not good for anyone. That's not good for my videos. That's not good for the people who watch my videos. It's just bad in general. So in some situations, like if you're super, super stressed out and you can't do whatever it is that you, should be doing or that you might want to do, or maybe you just don't have anything that you need to do. Maybe you're on like, I don't know, a vacation or something, and there's not really anything that needs to be done. In those situations, then sometimes it's best. Ooh, can we sneak? Yeah, there we go. Sometimes it's best to just, sort of do it a little bit differently. Sometimes it's best to just take a step back. Just find something that you can do that is kind of therapeutic, for lack of a better word. Like for me, what I've done a lot of the last couple days, I've been watching Star Trek. I've been binge watching Star Trek on Netflix with my wife, watching Deep Space Nine, which, by the way, I every time I like go a while without watching Deep Space Nine, I forget just how good of a Star Trek Deep Space Nine is. It's so good, and I always forget that. I always think it's like, it's decent, and then I watch it again, I'm like, man, I forget how good the characters are in the show. But that's completely unrelated to what we're talking about today. But find something that that is sort of therapeutic for you, that you can just kind of, relax during. Whether maybe that's, watching something on TV. Maybe that's watching YouTube videos. Maybe that is, I don't know, going for a run. Exercise can be really good for you as well if you're in a situation where you're trying to cope with some sort of extremely stressful thing that's going on. But the big thing is to ultimately occupy your mind with something other than whatever bad stuff is happening at the time. And that's what's so important when it comes to coping with stress. And then you also kind of need to sort of change the way that you think about it, or think about things just in general. Like a lot of people, not so much me, but other people like my wife, for example, get so hung up on the small things, on the minutia, that it's very difficult for them to then realize that whatever it is that's really bothering them is not really something that matters all that much. Okay, so you went to the grocery store and you forgot to get milk. That's really not that big of a deal. That's not something that should really bother you and that you should feel horrible about. It's like, okay, well, you forgot milk. Okay, whatever. Let's go back to the grocery store and get milk, or we'll just get it next time and we'll live without milk for a day or two. It's not the end of the world. Some people get so focused on the small things and the things that are ultimately in the big picture irrelevant, that it causes them to be more stressed. And I think it's very important that if you're trying to deal with stress, you make sure that you're thinking about things in a way where you're not focused on the little minute details. You're focused on the big picture. I think that's extremely important, because if you don't, then you start to run into problems. That's where you start to run into situations where you're like, man, everything has gone wrong. I'm having the worst day. My girlfriend dumped me. I've got this giant project that's due for finals. I forgot to bring my lunch. And it all kind of adds up. It all kind of compounds. And then suddenly you're just in a mood or a situation where you're just mentally drained and you're just shut down. You know what I mean? I think we've all been there at some point. And it happens, and it's just kind of part of life. But I don't know. I think there are certainly things that people can do to kind of try and look at it in a different manner and sort of figure out, what's the best way to deal with this situation. Focus on what actually is important and what actually matters. And if you do that, I think you'll be in a much better place overall, mentally and physically and everything like that, because stress is very unhealthy. Not just from a mental standpoint, but physically. There's all sorts of research and stuff that shows that enough stress over a long enough period of time does really bad things for your body. And it my wife, as an example, often gets migraines, and part of the reason that she gets migraines is because she is not very good at dealing with stress. I can tell when she is super stressed out. And she often ends up with a migraine afterwards, but, and that's one example. I mean, I'm no expert, take what I say. When it comes to anything scientific, take what I say with a grain of salt, because I'm not a scientist. I'm not an expert. Do your own, look at papers and things in scientific journals from people who know what they're talking about better than I do. But I do know that there is research that shows that stress is very, very bad for you. Physically, if you have enough of it, and if you're not good at dealing with it, it can really cause you some problems. Is it? Yeah, I was gonna say, I think it's almost night. We'll see if we can sleep here, and then we'll start working on that other house. But when it comes to dealing with stress, it's also important to recognize A, that you are stressed to begin with, and B, what it is that's stressing you out. Those are both very important things too, because you can't fix a problem if you don't know what the problem is, or if you're not willing to admit that the problem exists. That's one spot where people often run into difficulties. Like, they're like, oh no, I'm not stressed. I'm totally fine. But really they're struggling with something, and that happens. And it happens to people all the time. It happens to me even. I wonder if we could do this. I bet we could do this in such a way that we would have multiple levels here. That could be kind of cool. I think this one needs to be moved. I think we gotta mix this up a little bit. I think we're gonna go here. Yeah, let's change this. Let's change this up a little bit. Anyway, so one big thing that's also very, very important when it comes to dealing with this type of thing is just realizing that you're stressed and recognizing what it is that's causing you that stress, and then going from there. You know, we're not always going to be able to avoid stress entirely. Nobody's able to do that. It's just a part of life that is, you know, impossible to entirely avoid altogether. Although we all wish it would. Although we all wish that wasn't the case. I think all of us would love it if we could just, you know, never be stressed. But that's obviously not possible. Like, it's part of life. There is nothing you can do to completely and totally eliminate all stress from your life. It really just comes down to like how you deal with it. And there's a lot of like self-discipline involved, and like kind of learning to keep your emotions in check and like all this other sort of stuff. Because different people deal with things in different ways, and in some circumstances you're going to be better off, and in some you're not. You know, some different people will handle situations differently as well. You know, what might stress me out might not stress somebody else out, and for that matter, how I might react might be different than how somebody else reacts. So I don't know. There's a lot of things about it that are complicated and complex, but at least for me, I find that, you know, focusing on the immediate thing going on is really important, as well as just sort of learning to recognize when you're stressed and what it is that's causing you that stress, and then dealing with it accordingly. Okay, this might work. Maybe. I think we can make this work. Let's do this. Let's go here. And we're going to turn that into the stripped logs, like so. And then I think here we'll do the windows, right? Like so. Come around here and do the same. Ooh, this is going to be... This is actually fine. We'll do it this way. We'll go like so. And these will kind of raise up right here. Right? And we'll have our windows back here. These windows really aren't going to be visible for the most part anyway, so I'm not super worried about them. But let's get that stuff in place. There we go. And then I think we want the door for this house maybe here. I think that's a good place for it. And then it's just a matter of getting our roof set up again. And that should be fairly easy to do, right? Like this. That one's going to have to go here. This is going to be the challenging bit right there. That's going to be where it gets a little funky. But I think we can make this work. Let's see. So we'll do something like that. And then here. Yeah. I think I see how this is going to work. Tell you what, guys, let me get some more work done on this. Let me see if I can get this thing all built up. And I'll be back with you with an update in just a minute. All right, guys, I am back and the other house is all done. I love this. Check this out. So you walk through the main gates and you've got these different levels there's nothing behind me, right? No creepers or anything? No. You get these different levels of perspective, right? So this is kind of hindering your view a little bit, as is this. And then as you kind of move forward, it widens up and you can start to see these other houses and stuff. I really like the way this turned out. It's very, very simple. I mean, these ends of the house, these kind of, you know, sides are essentially the same as these ones. I didn't really mix it up too much there, and that's fine. A lot of this is going to be kind of quantity based. Like the thing that's going to be so amazing about this area when it's all done, this kingdom, is going to be the sheer quantity of houses and things like that, as opposed to you know, having every house be like super detailed and all that kind of stuff. It's much the same as it was with like Regnum, for example. Most of the houses in Regnum are really not that interesting by themselves, but when you have an entire giant area of them, that's where you kind of get that wow factor from. And that's going to be sort of the same here. We're going to have a bunch of different houses and buildings and structures and things like that, and they'll all kind of come together. And I just realized that this side of the house is missing windows. Self, what you doing? You totally forgot to put windows in right here. The house needs those. Those are important. Am I missing any other windows? Did I forget the rest of them? No, I think that's it. Anyway, I want to go ahead and jump into the comment of the day. And it's from William Cochran, and it says, "Where are you putting the main keep of the castle?" Great video, Wells. So basically, I don't think that this castle is actually going to have a keep, per se. This town. It's going to have a palace, though, which is in many ways kind of the same thing, but much less defensive in nature, like structurally and everything. On Hermitcraft, the castle I built there was meant to be a lot more realistic than this area is. This is going to be a lot more like fantasy inspired, which means there's going to be things that aren't necessarily super realistic, like historically, right? Things that are really just done for looks and don't really serve any true purpose other than to make things look cool. On real life castles, it was rare until you got past the point where castles actually like served a legitimate defensive purpose. It was rare to have castles where every little detail of the castle was not designed with a purpose in mind. You would almost never see giant towers that reached, you know, if you think about like the Disney castle, for example, as just kind of the quintessential fantasy castle, there's all sorts of like spires and towers on there that really give it kind of a unique fantasy style look, but in real life, they really wouldn't serve any actual legitimate defensive purpose. And that's what we're going to have here. Now, I'm planning to build a palace, which is going to be like where the lord or the ruler of this area lives. And it's going to be kind of in this little area that we're walking around in right now. It's going to be up on this hill, kind of overlooking everything. And it will have walls and it will have some towers and things like that. But it's going to be a lot more decorative and a lot more aesthetically pleasing than it is going to be functional when it comes to the idea of like defending the area against attackers, if that makes sense. So it's going to go right here. I don't know what it's going to look like yet. I've got some ideas, but I haven't actually like, you know, started really planning them out yet. I want to kind of work a bit more on the village itself and some of these walls and things like that, and just kind of let it develop over time organically and all that kind of stuff. But we'll get there. There will be a large structure here on this little area. I know it's going to be kind of roughly an L shape, because if we look at the land is roughly an L shape, so it's going to kind of cover this upper part, or maybe it'll be like a T. I don't know. But either way, we'll sort it out, and it will look good once it's all said and done. I'm sure of that. It's just gonna, I need to come up with a plan first, but it's gonna go up there above that retaining wall on that hill overlooking the rest of the kingdom. But unfortunately, guys, I am out of time for this episode, so I think I gotta call this one right here. My friends, if you enjoyed the video, you know what to do. Links in the description below, so check that out as well. Otherwise, my friends, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.